Europe is fracturing right now, and most people have no idea how fast it's happening. Today, Ursula von der Leyen pulled off what might be the most audacious political move of the year, pushing through a massive trade deal while the entire world was staring at the Middle East. Germany is split down the middle over what's unfolding in Iran, with parties practically at each other's throats. Security agencies across Europe just went to maximum alert, warning about sleeper cells and potential attacks on European soil. And organized crime in Germany, 1.6 billion euros in damage, and the government says this time they really mean business. Oh, and gas prices up 25% overnight, with experts saying they could double. But stay with me until the end, because what I've saved for last, it ties everything together in a way that will genuinely surprise you. If any of this matters to you, and I think it does if you're watching, hit that like button and subscribe. And honestly, if you can, consider sponsoring this channel or using the super thanks feature. I know that sounds like a pitch, but here's the thing. What we do here, the research, the fact-checking, the digging through sources in multiple languages to make sure we're not feeding you garbage, that takes real time and real effort. In a world drowning in fake news, supporting independent journalism isn't charity. It's self-defense. So thank you truly to everyone who makes this possible. Now let's get into it. And I mean, let's really get into it. Ursula von der Leyen just did something extraordinary, and she did it while nobody was watching. While every camera on the planet was pointed at Iran, while diplomats were scrambling and headlines were screaming about airstrikes, Ursula quietly, almost surgically, launched the Mercosur trade deal, the agreement with South American countries. And she did it without waiting for the European Parliament to ratify it. She did it while European lawmakers had literally taken the question of whether this deal is even legal to the European Court. She just went ahead. Now think about that for a second. The European Parliament, the body that's supposed to represent 500 million citizens, raised formal legal questions about this agreement. And the head of the European Commission said, essentially, I'll handle this myself. If that doesn't make you sit up straight, I don't know what will. And here's where it gets even more interesting. President Macron called the decision an unpleasant surprise. France had been fighting this deal for months, maybe years, because French farmers were terrified of cheap South American agricultural products flooding the European market, products that don't meet EU standards. Germany and Spain, on the other hand, welcomed the move. So what you're seeing isn't just one bureaucrat making a bold call. You're seeing the fault lines of Europe cracking open in real time. The commentary on this is biting, and I think it's accurate. Von der Leyen used what some are calling strategic sense of timing, pushing through a controversial deal while the world's attention was locked onto Iran. In politics, that's not reckless. That's a masterclass. But the question is, a masterclass in what exactly? Democracy or something else? And that's just the opening act. Because what happened next across Europe, it reveals just how fragile this whole structure really is. But first, let me ask you something. Did you know that European foreign ministers couldn't even agree on a basic response to one of the biggest security crises in years? Stay with me. Here's where the picture gets darker. After the United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran, Europe's response was, well, let me put it this way. The European Commission and the EU Council expressed serious concern. That was it, serious concern. Ursula von der Leyen announced an emergency meeting of security commissioners for Monday, but she carefully, very carefully, avoided openly backing what the US and Israel had done. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom issued a joint statement, but here's the twist. They condemned Iran's retaliatory strikes and called on Iran to immediately cease indiscriminate military attacks. The UN Secretary-General Guterres, he expressed deep concern. As he does, now pause and notice the asymmetry. When an ally conducts strikes, Europe is concerned. When the target retaliates, Europe strongly condemns. European diplomacy in action, ladies and gentlemen. And if that sounds like a double standard, well, that's because it is. But that contradiction, it's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. The Israeli ambassador to Germany, Ron Prosor, pointed to a drone strike on a British airbase in Cyprus as a signal that the conflict is widening. Think about that. A British military base on European soil hit by a drone. An EU ministerial meeting on Cyprus was already cancelled after that suspected attack. Germany's Foreign Minister Wadeful categorically ruled out any German military involvement, citing lack of bases and capabilities in the region. The chair of the Bundestag's Defense Committee would only go as far as saying weapons deliveries might be on the table. France declared its readiness to defend Gulf states. In words, of course. And here's the line that should keep you up at night. Germany can't act. France is ready in words only, and meanwhile Iran is striking bases on Cyprus. The distribution of roles in European security, it looks devastating. If you're wondering whether Europe can actually defend itself or its interests, the answer right now is a very uncomfortable silence. But here's what most people are completely missing about this crisis. The real damage isn't happening in the Middle East. It's happening inside Germany's own government. And that part of the story, it changes everything. Don't go anywhere. Germany, the supposed engine of Europe, is split wide open. There is no unified position on the strikes against Iran. The CDU's Roderich Kiesewetter called the attack justified. The SPD called it a troubling sign. The AfD said Germany should focus on internal security instead. The Left Party sharply criticized the strikes, and Sarah Wagenknecht demanded that Berlin clearly condemn the attack. One country, 5 completely different responses. That's not a debate, that's a breakdown. And according to the Financial Times, an expansion of this conflict could directly impact weapons deliveries to Ukraine, because American resources and attention would be redirected. Germany has convened a crisis team. Norway, Russia, and Hamas condemned the strikes against Iran. France and the United Kingdom condemned Iran's retaliatory strikes. When the main question becomes, who is condemning whom, and it starts sounding like a game of musical chairs, you understand why diplomacy isn't saving anyone anymore. Meanwhile, the EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas convened an emergency meeting of foreign ministers. But before it even started, the verdict was already in. Europe is in the audience, not on the stage. None of the EU countries participated in the operation. Some received advance notice from Israel. Others learned about it from the news. Ursula von der Leyen called for maximum restraint and protection of civilians, but on the actual strikes by the US and Israel? Silence. Europe is divided. The Czech Republic supports the US and Israel. Spain criticizes what it calls unilateral escalation. An international law expert called the strikes illegal under international law. Europe condemns Iran's responses louder than the strikes against Iran itself. Classic diplomatic dance. Didn't get into the war, but already knee-deep in a diplomatic dead end. And if you think that's just abstract geopolitics, wait until you hear what's happening on the streets of German cities right now. This next part, honestly, it hit me harder than I expected. Here's the part where abstract geopolitics becomes very, very real. After the strikes on Iran, German intelligence agencies recorded a sharp spike in threat levels. Bavaria's Interior Minister Joachim Herrmann warned of a heightened abstract threat, particularly targeting Jewish, Israeli, and American sites. Germany's Commissioner for Combating Anti-Semitism, Felix Klein, warned that Jewish life in Germany is under heightened threat. The head of the Bundestag's Intelligence Oversight Committee, Mark Henrichmann from the CDU, did not rule out retaliatory actions by Iranian sleeper cells in Europe. Germany's Interior Ministry confirmed increased security, and the Foreign Ministry issued recommendations strongly advising against travel to Israel, Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. And Felix Klein went further. He explicitly warned that Iran could use its networks for violent acts against Jewish and Israeli institutions, schools, synagogues, as well as targets connected to Israel and the United States. Berlin police have already increased security measures. The mechanism is as old as the world itself. The strikes happen in the Middle East, but the hiding starts in the heart of Europe. When a conflict thousands of kilometers away turns into round-the-clock security operations at home, that's not an abstract threat anymore. That's a concrete bill for geopolitics. And Europe is just now opening the envelope. Are you still with me? Good. Because now we need to talk about something that shows just how deep the cracks in Germany really go, and it has nothing to do with Iran. Germany's government just unveiled a new package to fight organized crime. Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt from the CSU and Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil from the SPD announced a change of the rules of the game. The package includes super cooperation between the BKA, Germany's Federal Criminal Police, and Customs, shared databases, joint task forces, neural networks to analyze shadow financial flows. And here's the key innovation: shifting the burden of proof. You bought a Porsche on a salary of €2,000 a month? Now you prove the money is clean. In 2024, the damage from organized crime in Germany totaled 1.6 billion euros. There were 647 investigations, up 7% from the 10-year average, and the landscape is grim. Italian mafias, Russian and Eurasian criminal syndicates, clan-based structures, human traffickers, all operating on German soil. But here's the catch, and experts aren't shy about saying it. The package looks impressive on paper, but without dismantling the actual structures and without real global cooperation through Europol, this is, and I'm quoting the sentiment here, fighting windmills. The government screams, "We're fighting back," while organized crime doesn't even look up. It's too busy counting its billions. And that contrast between the rhetoric and the reality, that might be the most European thing I've heard all week. Now, I saved this for last because I think it connects everything we've talked about today. And it's the story that should worry every single person watching this right now. Gas prices in Europe just jumped 25%. Overnight. On the back of the Iranian escalation, wholesale natural gas prices surged. Oil prices are climbing too. And here's the number that should terrify you. If shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is halted for even 1 month, gas prices in Europe could double. Double. The SPD's foreign policy spokesman Adis Ahmetovic issued a warning that goes beyond energy. He said, and I want you to hear this carefully, millions of people could flee from Iran to Europe. He described a 90 million strong multi-ethnic state on the brink of civil conflict, and he pointed out that this military action against Iran is also being used as leverage against China, which is Iran's biggest oil buyer. So connect the dots with me. Europe's energy security depends on a narrow waterway it has zero influence over. A wider conflict could send millions of refugees toward European borders. And the very strikes that triggered this crisis, Europe wasn't even consulted, wasn't even on the stage. This is the pattern, and I keep coming back to it because it matters. Europe reacts. Europe expresses concern. Europe convenes emergency meetings. But Europe does not shape the events that determine its own future. And until that changes, every crisis in the Middle East, every power play in Washington, every trade deal pushed through while no one's looking, they all end up as bills that European citizens pay. So tell me in the comments, where do you think this goes from here? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure anyone has a good answer. If this made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't, and whatever you do, keep asking questions, because the moment we stop asking is the moment they stop answering. Every like you leave, every comment you write, it's not just a nice gesture. It's how YouTube decides whether to show this video to 10 people or 10,000. The algorithm is simple, it rewards engagement, and that means your click genuinely changes who sees this. So if anything today made you think, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and if you want to go further, sponsoring the channel or using super thanks, that's what keeps this whole operation running. I won't pretend this is easy work. Every episode means hours of digging through sources, cross-referencing facts, translating, verifying, making sure what reaches you is solid and real. No corporate budget behind this, no editorial board telling me what to say, just independent journalism that answers to you and nobody else. Your support isn't a donation, it's a partnership. It's you saying that honest, careful reporting still matters. Drop a comment, tell me what you think, argue with me if you disagree. This community exists because you showed up, and I don't take that for granted. Thank you.